Poverty and other developmental issues. Poverty is general scarcity or the state of one who lacks a certain amount of material possessions or money. It is a multifaceted concept which includes social, economic, political elements. Poverty seems to be chronic or temporary, and most of the time it is closely related to the inequality. As a dynamic concept, poverty is changing and adapting according to consumption patterns. Social dynamics and technological change. There are two concepts of poverty in economics. Absolute poverty. If a person's income or consumption expenditure is so low that he cannot live at minimum subsistence level, he is said to be absolutely poor. It basically indicates the deprivation of some sort resulting in hunger and starvation. People are said to be in absolute poverty if their earnings are insufficient to obtain the minimum necessities for the maintenance of physical efficiency. Such maximum necessities are usually measured in the terms of minimum and nutritional requirements. Relative poverty. Relative poverty concept indicates inequalities of income. The people of low income groups are relatively poor as compared to the people whose incomes are high. Here, poverty is viewed in terms of inequality between the poorest group and the rest of the community. It is to be noted that relative poverty cannot be eradicated without transfers from the rich to the poor. At the same time, the relatively poor may be living above the minimum subsistence level. Poverty in India. In India, the identification process of persons below the poverty lines has been put to a controversy for the last few years. Planning Commission adopted the survey of National Sample Surveys Organization as a basis for defining poverty line and terminating the number of persons below it. On the basis of the criteria, Planning Commission estimated 18.96% of total population below the poverty line for the 1993-94. Later, the expert ground under the chairmanship of Prof. D.T. Lakhadawala found earlier estimates of poverty unreliable and suggested an alternative approach for identifying poor, in which different poverty line was determined for different states on the basis of price level of the particular state. The poverty in India is measured with the minimum transfer from rich to poor. At the same time, the relatively poor may be living above the minimum subsistence level. Poverty in India. The identification of poverty, a persons below the poverty line, has been put to controversy for the last few years. Planning Commission adopted the survey of National Sample Survey Organization (NSSO) as a basis for defining poverty line and determining the number of persons below it. On the basis of these criteria, Planning Commission estimated 18.96% of total population below the poverty line for the year 1993-94. Later, the expert group under the chairmanship of Most Occupated Origins and Indian Model. It is simply what can called the starvation line, a line that accounts for the feeling of satiety measured in calories. Statistics. Poverty. 50% of Indians don't have proper shelter. 70% don't have access to decent toilets. 35% of households don't have a nearby water source. 85% of villages don't have secondary schools. Over 40% of these same villages don't have proper roads connecting them. Despite the country's metro GDP growth rate about 9%. Poverty in India is still pervasive, especially in rural areas where 70% of India's 1.2 billion population live. It is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and yet its riches are hardly redistributed across the population. It spends only 1% of its GDP on health, which is half that of China. While we are comparing public expenditure, contrast this with Russia and Brazil, whose spending on health is around 3.5% of their respective GDPs. Cause of poverty. The causes of poverty in India are nothing short of complex, but a lot of progress has been made to tackle them. The economic reforms of 1991, despite spurring a huge growth of the economy, have left the country with terrible inequalities within cities as well as between urban and rural areas. It is said that a country is poor because it is poor. Poverty is a multi-dimensional social problem. Its causes are varied. They are as follows. Climate factors. Climatic conditions constitute an important cause of rural poverty. The hot climate of India reduces the capacity of people to work, for which production severely suffer. Frequent flood, famine, earthquakes and cyclone cause heavy damage to the agriculture. Moreover, absence of timely rain, excessive or deficient rain affect severely country's agricultural production. Demographic factors. The following demographic factors are accountable for poverty in India. Rapid growth of population. Rapid growth of population aggravates the poverty of the people. Population growth not only creates difficulties in the removal of poverty but also lowers the per capita income, which tends to increase poverty. The burden of this reduction in per capita incomes is borne heavily by the poor people. Population growth at a faster rate increases labor supply, which tends to lower the wage rate. Size of family. Size of family has significant bearing on poverty. The larger the size of family, the lower is the per capita income and the lower is the standard of living. The persistence of the joint family system has contributed to the health and earning capacity of the ruralities. Economic factors. Low agricultural productivity, poverty and real income are very much interrelated. Increasing real income leads to the reduction of the magnitude of poverty. So far as the agricultural sector is concerned, the farmers even today are following the traditional method of cultivation. Hence, there is low agricultural productivity resulting in rural poverty. Unequal distribution of land and other assets. Land and other forms of assets constitute source of income for the ruralities, but unfortunately there has been unequal distribution of land and other assets in our economy. The size-wise distribution of operational holding indicates a very high degree of concentration in the hands of a few farmers, leading to poverty of many in the rural sector. Decline of village industries. At present, consequent upon industrialization, new factories and industries are being set up in rural areas. Village industries fail to compete in terms of quality and peace. As a result, they are closed down. The workers are thrown out of employment and lead to a life of poverty. Immobility of labor. Immobility of labor also accounts for rural poverty. Even if higher wages are offered, laborers are not willing to leave their homes. Lack of employment opportunities. Unemployment is the reflection of poverty. Because of lack of employment opportunities, people remain either unemployed or underemployed. Most of these unemployed and underemployed workers are the small and marginal farmers, and the landless agricultural laborers. Social factors. Education. Education is an agent of social change and egalitarianism. Poverty is also said to be closely related to the levels of schooling, and these two have a circular relationship. The earning power is endowed in the individual by investment in education and training, but this investment in poor takes away money, and lack of human investment contributes to the low earning capacity of individuals. In this way, people are poor because they have little investment in themselves, and poor people do not have the funds for human capital investment. Caste system. Caste system in India has always been responsible for rural poverty. The subordination of the low caste people by the higher caste people caused the poverty of the former due to digit caste system. The low caste people could not participate in a game of economic process. A Shudra was not allowed to become a trader, and a Vaishya could earn his bread only by trade. Birth would decide their occupation and their economic fate. Caste system acted as a springboard for class exploitation, with the result that the counterparts of the poverty, the many, is the opulence of the few.